Hello, I am NC. I'm originally from Vietnam. The culture there was no debt because debt equals failure. At least that was how it was back in the old days. I don't know about it now. I'm sure a lot of people there probably have more debt nowadays. When I arrived to America, I realized that having debt is very common. In fact, according to the Federal Reserve and New York Fed, in 2026, about 80 to 85% of American adults owe some form of debt and that's totally to about $19 trillion. That's like 4 out of 5 adults owe money. That's unbelievable. It's like a national crisis, not a personal failure anymore. So as you are watching this, you are most likely owing some form of debt. Mortgage debt, auto debt, credit card debt, student loans, or medical debt. Growing up, having ever worried about getting into debt really helped me to avoid having debt. How about you? Have you ever thought about debt when you were growing up, maybe as like some teenager or as a young adult? How about owing your friends money? Is that a fear that you have about owing your friends money? People may think that you are a loser. You can't get your life together. And do you know how to manage your budget? I think it's a conspiracy. Sometimes at school, they don't teach those classes about how to budget and manage your money. Maybe that's so then you come out of college and not know how to manage your money, so then you can pay the credit card company for the rest of your life and be their slave to just pay off the interest. I was very frugal, never spend money on almost anything that is unnecessary. I don't drink coffee. I don't drink soda unless, if I go to a restaurant and it's included, like you go to get a meal, it's included, okay, fine. But otherwise, I'll just take water. Almost never buy anything from the vending machine or visit a coffee shop at all. While my friends are enjoying their Starbucks, their soda, and owning much newer and better car than my free used car from my uncle, that the rust on the side of the door made it look like there was a big bullet just went through it. That was when I was just finished college and I needed a car, and so I got this free car from my uncle. I was always afraid of getting into debt, so I don't want to be associated as a failure because debt equals failure. Do you feel that way? So I try my best to minimize my spending to avoid being in debt. There's a big sacrifice to lifestyle for sure. But I was able to avoid owing money from my friends, my parents, or anyone else up until after college. I got student loans to pay off. What do you expect from a poor student? I was living off $1 banquet frozen meals. The $5 for 4 roast beef deal from Arby's back in the day. No such good deals anymore. And my parents keep dropping food off for me each week so I don't have to spend more on food. Regardless, I still have a student loan to pay. And it was only the beginning because I needed the student loan to at least pay for my books, my textbooks, my rent for staying at the campus area, And I even share the apartment with another roommate to minimize the cost. I don't know about you, but after the student loan, there was more loans, right? There's gonna be car payments and then the mortgage loan. Well, I'm lucky that I don't owe the bank, so I didn't have to pay any interest, but I owe my family the money. It is still debt. Growing up in Asia, where my mindset that debt is failure, I wanted to pay those off as soon as possible. But really, who in America has never got into debt before? I think the answer is zero. No one. You must owe some debt in some point of your life, unless you are born into a very rich family. Whether having debt is equal to failure, that is debatable. It really depends whether your debt is manageable or if it's so massive that you are only paying off the interest for the rest of your life. Even billionaires have debt in this country. Because if you use debt the right way, it can be advantageous for you to make even more money. But that's probably not recommended for ordinary people like us to risk debt to gamble for more money. I remember seeing an interview of a billionaire before on YouTube, and that guy's advice to people was, don't hang out with the losers. Ouch. While it feels hurt, mean, and inhuman, but that is somehow true. I remember when I was younger, I had a friend who was always living paycheck by paycheck. When something unexpected happened, he didn't have an emergency fund to cover for the expense. Then guess what happened? He goes around and borrow money. Now, does that look good for his reputation? Nope. Should I borrow him money? Probably not, but I did just because I want to be a good king friend. But shouldn't I? Really? I wouldn't say I shouldn't. Not that he never paid me back. He did pay me back. But it happens again and again. Maybe half a year later, he'll ask for borrow money again. He just never seemed to learn to pull his life together. And I start seeing him as a loser. And do I want to hang out with loser? That's back to that billionaire's advice. I would say my fear of being in debt really helped me in a way of not getting myself to overspend and took a lot of additional caution in managing my money. I'm thankful that the fear and being over worried about my finance is actually helping me to avoid debt. So I'm going to end this topic with some helpful advice, hopefully for you. It depends on what stage of financial freedom you are at right now. If you are about to become a young adult and haven't acquired any debt yet at this stage of your life, don't let the peer pressure to fit in, to make you spend money on unhealthy and unnecessary things like coffee and cigarette. Build good habit and control your expense. And you will not become a slave who works to pay for credit card companies or bank for the rest of your life. And if you are an adult who is already in some debt, I can tell you the simple equation that even a fifth grader can understand. By the end of each month, just make sure that your total expense is less than your total income. Expense less than income. That's simple. How to get there? Well, a lot of it is lifestyle. I'm sure there are a lot of wants that you can cut out in your expenses. Remember my $1 frozen meal in college? I don't ever want to eat them again in my life, but that was what I had to do. It won't be easy and it sucks. Especially when your friends are all having fun and then you're like, I don't have money, I'm staying home. Really make you look like a loser at that point, but you'll be having the bigger laugh later on in life when they are all in debt and then you are the one who's not in debt. So do you want to laugh now or laugh later. I guess either way, I would rather laugh later with no debt. And if you are able to manage to save some extra cash, then pay off your debts slowly. The future you will be very thankful of the present you for doing that. And finally, if you are already stuck in this massive load of debt that you are only paying off interest and barely living through each month, then I really don't know how to sugarcoat this for you, besides wishing you luck and make sure your children and your next generations not to ever follow those missteps again. Then maybe when your children become successful, they can help you out. So there is still hope. So anyway, that's all I have to talk about the fear of being in debt and whether that is really associated with being a failure in life or not. Personally, I don't really think people are losers, and I don't really think people fail their life if they have debt. They will just never get taught how to manage their money. And also, people just really want to enjoy life way too early, and they have overspent the future money that do not belong to them to borrowing. And that is really not a good thing to do. And people just don't really know, and nobody really teach them that. So I hope this video really help you or anyone that is probably worrying about being in debt. And like I said, at some point in anybody's life, you are going to have to be in debt. There's no way that you can avoid debt completely for all your life. But you might want to, as soon as possible, pay it all off and enjoy the rest of your life being financially free. So feel free to share your story, leave a comment, tell me how did you save your money, how you cut your wants, what is your lifestyles like, are you struggling financially, and if so, how are you managing your budget?